Hello. Hello. Hello, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome again to HIPA lectures and workshops. And we hope you will enjoy our lecture today with Dany Eid. And we have something very nice for the people who are joining our lectures recently, which is sponsored by Nikon. Yeah. You will be receiving an email asking you to submit some photos, and the winner will be rewarded with something very special from Nikon. It's a safari trip. Yeah, shall I say that? It should be, yeah. Yeah, within this week, we will send you an email, and please submit your landscape photographs. It's exclusively for landscape photography, and we will be choosing the winner, and the winner will be entitled to win this safari trip with Nikon. Okay, something else, after 1 hour approximately, you will have the break. It's 10 minutes break. Please stick to the timing. And don't forget to take your certificates at the end of the lecture. And I hope you will enjoy this 3 hours.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ala, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I know so many people personally, which is great. Today, we have a landscape photography session, so everything is related to landscape photography. We're going to go for 3 hours presentation. God be with you, because 3 hours, it's too much with me. Even my wife, she can't stand me for that time. So let's start our session today. I'll do you first. Excuse me. No, no, I'm just joking. So I'm actually doing my presentation. I'm very natural, so I'm improvised. I'm not that person that go by the book or the points or more go into technical stuff. So I prefer doing the presentation of people to understand me, to show real life gear, equipment, and to explain about the topic. So I'll start by myself as a photographer. Okay, just a second. Okay. Okay. So, my name is Dany Eid. I'm a travel and landscape photographer. I started photography almost 8 years ago. I started as a hobby photographer, as everyone who started this beautiful hobby. 4 years ago, I decided to quit my job. I used to work in the corporate business. So I was working in the retail industry and entertainment. So I decided to quit my job and to focus on photography. I had really hard time last 4 years in my life to be able to find what I want. How can I make money? How can I survive? How can I satisfy my wife? Because she wants that money otherwise. So it was very challenging when someone is responsible. And I did many corporate jobs. I started doing landscape, cityscape photography. Then I moved to food photography, lifestyle, and mainly corporate. It was very hard to make money out of the landscape and cityscape, because most of the clients in the market, they want to go for more commercial, fashion, corporate, weddings, events, food, product. So it wasn't my direction as an artist. So I decided to start working with the brands. I represent many brands as an ambassador. So many people, they ask me how you make money. So how you make money in landscape. So I make money out of the brands I represent. I make money out of licensing some images. I do workshops, and I make money. I do corporate. I'm going to show you my corporate portfolio right now. So it's a combination of many things. So you cannot focus on only one thing. It's very risky. So I can manage my time because I consider photography, it's a business oriented, actually, more than a hobby. So you have to deal with photography as a business. You have to know what is your vision, what kind of clients do you want, what kind of images you're looking, what is your signature as an artist. So I represent Nikon. Today, the session is it's supported by Nikon School, actually. And I represent Nikon as a Nikon, I'm not an ambassador for Nikon, I'm a Nikon School member. I represent Carl Zeiss as a global ambassador for Carl Zeiss. I represent f-stop gear, and I represent 500px, which is one of the most famous educational or stock photography platform, and also INC brand ambassador. This is what I do in life, beside the corporate, beside many other things. I do workshops. I team up with many photographers globally. I have my partner in Dubai, which is, everyone knows, Daniel Chong. So we do workshops together. We are trying to help people to manage the workshops and the tools, and to help people to understand photography and give them a package of traveling and discovering whatever we're going, from Iceland to Lebanon to Namibia to whatever. And we do also workshops in Dubai. Some images on behind the scene from the students that attend our workshops. Let me start by corporate. This is my corporate portfolio. First of all, I do architectural. I have so many clients in the market. I work for Amar, I work for Dar in Abu Dhabi, I work for many big clients in the market. Another architectural images. All the shots that you will see today, it's a combination of experience, okay, as an artist, okay, and today you will learn how you can convert landscape skills into even business, and I'm going to show you now how. From interior photography, now some landscape portfolio, some corporate portfolio. I like to shoot portrait and people. I don't do fashion. I prefer more corporate, industrial. So I have some clients like Aramex, many other things. I like food photography. Let me stop here to explain about food photography. Maybe it's not our topic today, but this is part of what I learned. Food photography is an art that we consider. So when I was doing landscape and cityscape photography, my brain is function on rule of third. Everything is horizontal. So when I jumped into photography, I totally failed, because food is completely different composition. It requires lots of depth of field, composition. So the first 2 years, I was just learning food, and I really failed, because it was really hard to switch from different type of photography to food, which is completely different composition and settings and art. But I managed to achieve something. You know, I'm not one of the best. I'm not one of the best, actually, because there are maybe more than 2,000 photographers are better than me in food in Dubai. But I can do the job. It's not easy for me. It's not hard. This is my last campaign I did last week for LG. I'm sorry, we're not promoting the brand, but I'm just showing you. This is, I've been contacted by LG globally to run a campaign, something called LG Signature Edition, which is the top quality or the best quality of LG consumer electronics. So they want to combine between architectural, black and white photography, and even lifestyle. So they contact me because my portfolio is related for landscape and for cityscape. So this is where sometimes you can make money. And this is a huge project, 2 months of shooting in Dubai, between preparation, shooting. So I decided to combine my skills using so many techniques that I use in landscape photography that I'm going to explain about into that campaign. So you see some lifestyle, you see some architectural, outdoor, etc. I'll explain to you later on the settings, which are the same, because if you're shooting landscape, the settings are almost the same of cityscape. So today, our session will be divided into many parts. We're going to talk about gear, we're going to talk about preparation, nature, how we travel, how we use the applications that will facilitate our job. Education is the most important, from composition to settings in the camera to other things. Okay, of course, I need to introduce Ansel Adams. So he's the godfather of landscape photography. So he's the one who inspire all the landscape photographers worldwide. So one of the quotes of Ansel Adams is, you don't take a photograph, you make it. So this is landscape. We don't take a picture by chance. We plan our picture. We pre-visual things in advance. We need to live the moment, and we need to create it. It's art at the end. So it's not like street photography. In street photography or in photojournalism, you have the moment, you have the chance. In landscape, you don't have a chance. You will not go to any location and you suddenly you found, oh, it's a Milky Way. Oh, no, it's a beautiful sunset. Oh, the sun is here. No, you have to plan this. I'm going to show you how after that. Let me talk about my equipment. Yesterday, I had a discussion with, I was attending Nikon launch of the D850, the new one, at the address. And I've been receiving so many emails, questions from many photographers, unfortunately professionals and amateurs. And they want to upgrade to the new camera, which is good to upgrade for a camera if you can afford. But we need to ask ourselves, do we need that gear? Do we need that expensive camera? Do we need higher resolution of 46 megapixel? I was talking yesterday with Muhammad, and we went into this discussion even on a corporate level. Do we need medium format sometimes? So this is something that we need to keep asking ourselves. So I prefer that, yes, sometimes we need a good camera to be able to produce some images. We need a good high dynamic range. We need excellent lenses. And the most important, we need accessories. So I see people during my workshops, they invest in very expensive lens, very expensive camera, but they simply got a very cheap tripod, which is they cannot get long exposure shots, or they cannot get the right composition. So sometimes you need to invest in equipment. I'm going to show you some demonstration today, what are the essential equipment that we need to use for landscape photography. So let me start first, what we call it, what's in my bag, actually. I use the main three lenses of Nikon, which is the 14-24. I'm going to show you. That's 14-24 lens. This is one of the best lenses for landscape photography. I use 24-70. I will not bring all my equipment here. Sorry, guys. I need maybe 6 tables. I use 70-100. I use lots of tilt shift lenses. I'm going to explain what is tilt shift lenses and kind of architecture and landscape. We will talk about it, how we can. I'll show you so many images, especially on vertical mode, horizontal mode. We will explain about that, and even vertical panorama. So since I represent also Zeiss, I like shooting with fixed focal length. So I shoot with 15, 18, 21, 28. And this is mainly for the lenses. For the body, D800, D810 is more than enough. As an artist, even if you have D750, it's more than enough. We don't need higher megapixel. We need to know how we compose. We need to understand the exposure triangle. We need to understand the eyes of the performance. So let me continue now for the accessories. For the accessories, my best friend, remote control. So many people ask me, why your images are very sharp? Because I simply use, I don't touch the camera. I use all the time remote control because I shoot on low shutter speed. I use lots of filters. So let's go by here. So, remote cable is very important. Carbon fiber tripod or anything similar. This is my tripod. For landscape photography, this is the most essential item that you need to invest in, a tripod, because this is where you do all the job. So you need a very light tripod to be able to travel with, like something which is maybe 2 kilos, 1.5, and it's very steady, especially for landscape photography and long exposure. You need a ball head mount on the tripod, not necessarily the same brand from the ball head to the tripod. You can combine, but you need to find the right equipment. Sometimes I see people on my sessions that are using some ball heads, which is, you know, those ball heads with so many extensions. You don't need that. You need a ball head like that. You simply control it very simply with one knock. So this is one of the good tripods, actually, ball heads. You need an equipment also that helps you to do some panorama pictures. What I mean by panorama, you need leveling base. You need to level your camera. So this is the unit that you only control it from here, because when we do panorama, we need to stitch different images, so you need to be very aligned. So this is very important, leveling base. You need tripod, you need the plate, L plate landscape photography. I'm gonna stop on L plate presentation for like maybe half an hour talking about what is L plate, where you shoot vertical or you shoot horizontal. So it's very simple. You look at, that's it, you start composing. So this is very simple product and very steady. Many filters, and filters are essential for landscape photography. So many people, they tell me, okay, but you're shooting sometimes not long exposure. Why do you need filter? I'm gonna explain why I need filter. Sometimes I need to put my exposure down like 2-3 stops without going for long exposure, because I don't want to exceed f16. I'm going to talk about f16. I'm going to talk about lens diffraction. I'm going to talk about the exposure triangle. So I like to use different type of filters. So first, let's start by ND filters. I start by 3-stop, 6-stop, and 10-stop. 3-stop because I use it most of the time during blue hour. 6-stop, I use it during golden hour. And 10-stop, I use it before the golden hour when it's too bright. And sometimes I combine different filters together to achieve longer exposure, like 13 or 16 stop. For the filters, I don't like the square filter, the circular, because you will have vignette on wide angle. So I still prefer that you guys invest in some system of 100 millimeter. So this 150 millimeter, sorry. So I can use this one on any wide angle lens. So I simply need to add it to my holder like that, and very steady and very good holder like this brand. At the end of the presentation, if anyone is asking for a product discount on anything, so just please let me know so I can just put you in contact with the brands that I represent. So, and these, I use Grad filter, the sky, to be able to balance my exposure between the sky and the foreground. And sometimes I use a filter that few people they know about, something called the reverse grad. Sorry, what is reverse grad? What's the difference between grad filter and reverse grad? So mainly reverse grad, we use it as people who shoot during sunset and sunrise, where the sun is within the horizon. So when the sun is within the horizon, we need to control the amount of light only on the horizon level, and brighter the sky and brighter the foreground. So this is the role of the reverse grad for only people who do landscape on a horizon level. I'm not talking for cityscape because you will have building. I'm talking only about horizon level on landscape. So reverse grad is very important as well. I'll show you so many examples about those filters. Extra batteries. I consume lots of batteries. I have more than, when I travel, I have more, I don't know, 40, 50, 45 batteries. I carry more than 5-6 kilos because I do time lapse sometimes during my trips. Memory cards, you can use any memory cards, any brand. You want CF or SD card, but of course you need good capacity. My best friend is my power bank. Power bank to keep charging my mobile. I'm going to use lots of application on location. Application for exposure, application for weather report, application for night skies. So I need power bank. So when I travel, I don't want to end up having problem. I cannot access my phone because of the battery. So I have more than 5 or 6 battery packs. Imagine this one is like 28,000. So I can even charge my USB-C computer with it because I do backup on location. I don't keep my images on the laptop. So wherever I shoot sunset, I simply back up my images. Yeah, I'm a little bit, perfection in that level. Some external hard disks, important. You want something rugged that can absorb shock, not very cheap hard disks. On location, when you travel, you will be under many hard situations, and you're going into mountains, camping, so you need something like that. And of course, cleaning kit, headlamp. When we walk at night as a landscapers with the headlamp, we need to keep balancing ourselves. We need our hands to be free. We just only use the headlamp here. We don't use a mobile phone like that, relying on the torch. So this is something related to safety where I'm going to explain. I know there are so many small details, and so many people that said, okay, well, come on, what he's talking about. This is really important. You have to act as a professional. You have to get involved with other landscape photographers, how they think, how they walk, how they use the tripod. You know, I don't see any landscaper, you know, like just hanging the tripod like that open and walking in the nature. They always go by safety measurement. You know, they close the tripod, they lock their equipment. This is very important. So those small details, they make big difference as someone who's doing landscape in very harsh situations. I'm talking about Iceland, Norway, New Zealand, whatever. So, map of the world. I start first by planning my trips. In landscape, you have to plan. You have to understand where you're going. You have to set your target, actually. So when I decided to travel, and I said, okay, this is my bucket list. Why it's my bucket list? Why I need to go to Alaska? Why I need to go to Norway or to Pakistan? Because there is fascinating landscape there. I don't want to go to Zanzibar for street photography because I'm not a street photographer. I want to go to places where I can find my topic, my content, the elements of landscape. So some countries I've visited last 2 years. You have the list here. I'm not going to go by. And some others that are on the list. Yeah, so many. Afghanistan, I hope my wife, she will approve that. So I have so many countries that I'm planning for. Okay, let's start by preparation. I like to prepare, to be prepared before travel. I'm not going on a honeymoon vacation. I'm a pure someone looking to get the best shot during my trip. So I need to do some research. How we do the research about landscape. I like to use some websites which I can get inspired from other photographers. It's not a shame that you can shoot the same angle where others did, but you add your own signature. I see so many people, you know, they shoot Burj Khalifa 100 times, but I'm sure 100 times you will have 100 times type of light and 100 composition. If you shoot left or right or up or down. So it's all about your art, your creativity. So I like to get inspired by other photographers. So I just do some research. I'm going to take a benchmark today as if I'm going to Iceland. Okay, why Iceland? Just Iceland, because I love this country. So before going to Iceland, I simply check the country, the images. I got inspired from other photographers. I saved the location, the GPS coordinate for the locations. I checked the blogs about other photographers, what they wrote about safety, about how to access, about the light, about many other challenge things. I like to rely sometimes on hiking site. One of the best photographers, landscape photographers in the world, are originally hikers. I don't know if you heard about Mark Adams. Anyone heard about Mark Adams? Is the new Ansel Adams in our era. Mark Adams is one of the best landscape photographers in the world. One of the best. And he's like really inspirational for anyone. He's originally a hiker. So he accessed some location where nobody can get access. So because photography, landscape photography, you need to hike, you need to find a new composition, you need to go into places where, you know, maybe you need to hire a hiker with you as a guide to show you the location, the mountains, the whatever. I really rely on hiking sites, of course, tourism websites. See the country where you're going, some nice images, some nice locations. Also, I use social media a lot. Instagram, I search by tag, whatever. And I use Google Map. Preparation. I'm very precise in preparation. I normally go for 75% equipment and 25% personal stuff. Sometimes I go with one shirt or two shirts. You know, I keep washing, putting, then drying, then wearing. Because I don't care about all that. I care about investing in my photography. So I like to start doing some research, how we can save money. I know so many people, they do landscape, they don't have money. They don't want to spend on a monthly basis to travel to a very expensive country. But in fact, if you're smart enough and you know how and when to book your flights, you can save money. So I like to book my flights very early to get some best prices. I like when I stay in some hotels. If I'm going to Iceland, I'm going to stop by the city. I'm going to stay in a hotel. I like to get some nice view. I insist on nice view on the city. So even I go by those small details because my trip from the day I leave Dubai till I go back, I need to benefit from the timing. I need to get lots of images and many compositions. I like to invest by renting a 4x4 car, which is the most important. I can sleep in 2-star budget hotel. I don't mind unless it's safe. But my investment goes for something important, which is a car, able to access some location, to drive, and to be safe. I like to fly very early. I'm not that kind of person that's not organized. I'm very organized when I travel. You need to understand also the calculation between where you're staying and the location. So you need to measure the things, especially for landscape, if you're going to the mountains area. Of course, you need to maintain your schedule. I'm going to talk about that. So also, I like to start using some applications. I have some application for the maps, the location where I'm going. I'm going to go by each application alone, and you will be impressed today about this technology. I use some application called TPE, which is this one. I can know my sunrise timing, sunset, blue hour, golden hour, which is we're going to talk about later. Moon phase, humidity is very important. It's the biggest enemy against photographer is humidity. And ask me about in Dubai. You know, sometimes I reach Dubai like 80%, 90%, and I see, okay, there is fog. Let's get some fog shots. So this is important that to have some application for the humidity. Very nice application called PhotoPills. Okay, you can download all these apps on Apple, iOS, or even Android. Light pollution application for night photography. What is night pollution? This is where we need to do some Milky Way. We need very dark sky spot. So we always go by the map. If you check here, that's Saudi Arabia. Check how dark is, and that's Dubai. So you can still get some nice shot night, but still in Saudi Arabia, in dark spot, you don't have light pollution. So also you need to plan it according to that. We need a long exposure application and some applications for the tide, especially for people they do cityscape when the tide is very high and when the tide is low. You don't want to go to a location, you want to shoot some beautiful foreground with rocks, and you end up having a high tide. So you need to manage and to be smart in the timing. So it's all about timing, to be precise in your planning. Safety, this is what I always give during my workshops. I talk a lot about safety for my students. I'm very careful because I saw so many accidents. I saw so many bad things happen to people because they underestimate the nature. The problem that our market is the Middle East, and in our area in the Middle East, the nature is very polite. You don't find this high cliff with rocks with like Norway or New Zealand or Iceland. So sometimes people that live in the cities, they underestimate the Mother Earth's power. So this is something that you really need to take care about. Travel insurance essential. Insurance for your equipment, if you have very expensive equipment. Medical kit, we already talked about steady tripod because it's part of the safety. To know how to use the tripod. You don't walk like 10 people on location, landscapers, and your tripods are like that. Someone is turning, he will hit the other photographer. So you have to be very careful about how to use the tripod. When you walk, watch your steps, especially at low light conditions at night. Some headlamp, rain cover to protect your equipment. Of course, you need the connection, you need the mobile with you, and don't go alone for very extreme places. Today, I'm giving you example Iceland because I'm not going to point on Oman or HIPA here. I'm talking about extreme pro landscapers. Keep your gear with you. Many times, I know some people, they lost their gear at night because they don't see. He just put the lens and he cannot find it back because it's dark. And power bank. Okay, let me show you something also about the gear. Okay. Who's working in the airlines industry? Emirates. You're the pilot. Perfect. Okay. What's the average weight we can carry on board on Emirates? Well, you don't because you are VIP. You're getting 20 kilos. Yeah, between 8 and 11. They are generous, they let you in, but sometimes 9, 10. Yeah, on board, the check-in. Yeah. 7 kilo, yeah. 7 kilo, and you have sometimes a size of the cabin. If you have a big bag, he will ask you on the airport, you have to put it inside that. I hate that part, yeah. Yeah. And this is, I'm talking about international airlines. I'm not talking about internal airlines. I'm not talking about like if you're taking a charter flight from, I don't know, from place to place. It's smaller and you will have a problem. Yeah. Yeah. So many times I see so many photographers, they complain, we cannot travel anymore. We have lenses, we have equipment, we have batteries. So you need to manage how to pack your equipment. I never take with me batteries on board. I ship them. I never take my tripod on me on board because they will stop me, of course, for security reason. I only take my lenses, which is I don't ship my lenses. I take my lenses with me and I protect them in the bag, the lenses and the camera. But anything else in terms of equipment and accessories, I simply put them in the shipping bag, which is there is no glasses or expensive stuff. But sometimes I've been stopped at the airport. Okay, some PD. Oh, sir, your bag is very big. Okay, this is my bag. Very simple bag. No, because I carry more than 6, 7 lenses. I like to shoot with prime lenses, so I want to cover all the focal lengths. And I have so many equipment. And when I walk and I go for mountain, I need to put my coffee, my clothes, my jacket. So I need space. So sometimes they stop me at the airport. Oh, sir, your bag is very big. You cannot take it. You have to ship it. Oh, no problem. I'll show you a very nice solution. So this is brand. Stop. I'm not promoting the brand. I'm here to show you the gear that I use because so many people are fascinated and they have always questions about equipment. So this is something called f-stop. It's 2 pieces. So you have unit, which is we call it ICU, and from outside. So my equipment are here. Okay, I said, no problem. Do you want me to remove it? So I take this one with my lenses, and I kept it with me on the plane. And I said, okay, ship this one because it's empty. There is no lenses. So this is something smart when you travel to avoid problems and issues at the airlines. So those are small details, but trust me, you don't want to end up shipping your equipment to the cargo or whatever. So we have to start thinking on equipment level. Invest in those things. Don't tell me that I have D810, oh, I want to jump to phase 1. I want to jump to Hasselblad. I want to jump to D850. No, just invest in lenses, in equipment, in bags. Think about those small details. So today we will talk about landscape photography. What is landscape photography? So in landscape, we have 3 types of landscape. We have the first called representational, and second is impressionistic, and abstract. We start by representational landscape, which is anyone, as a beginner, he starts to take similar shots. This art is what you see, what you get. There's no long exposure, no minimalism in your composition, very classic, and just normal art. I'm not a big fan of that art, but this is a classic. It's the correct composition, and it's composed well, but there's nothing vibrant or attract you as a person. So this is a classic art that I'm not a big fan of, but sometimes I do. Oh, sorry. Then we have something called impressionistic. So this is when you impress someone with your picture. I'm not here to impress you about my images, but I have to show you. So why we impress someone? Because we combine different elements. We combine a long exposure. We use so many elements in our composition in terms of low clouds, long exposure, waterfall, composition, even northern light at night, and night sky. So this is when you start thinking out of the box to do something outstanding. Or if you want to be from the classic school, which is the representational art, you can. But it's always good to go for something like that. This is my type, actually, and you will see in my images later on. And then we go for abstract or minimalism. Even in landscape, you can still use some telephoto lenses to spot small details or start thinking as a fine art photographer. Not a fine art photographer, okay? A commercial photographer in photography, honestly speaking. You know, I'm not that kind of person that, okay, I'm a fine art photographer, I live a certain state of mind. I'm not, it's not my personality. So I still like this art, but I'm not into, you know, you find like 1 out of 10 images, something related to minimalism. So how we choose the landscape? What are the major elements that we need to consider actually? First, we need strong story in our composition. We need to be motivated. Landscape, you need to walk a lot. If you are a lazy person, don't do landscape. Stay, I don't know, do studio photography. Landscape, it's really for motivated people, someone who wants to achieve a certain look and he's willing to spend hours on location. Sometimes I spend 6 hours on the same composition to get the right light. Because I have to wait here. I have to wait a moment where the sun is below the, in between the clouds to be able to shoot at f16 and get the star look on the sun. So it's patience sometimes, and you have to stand in cold weather, in windy, and you are tired, and you know, this is the pleasure of landscape. You know, you spend lots of time doing your art, you compose, and you prove visual. I know from the beginning that I'm gonna have the sun like that. I know from the beginning that I need position in my foreground. I need to know that, oh, I need to implement rule of third here. So this is something for motivation. Scouting. Wherever I travel, I really rely on scouting. Even when I have corporate work with any client, I do scouting, and I charge him for the scouting. What I mean by scouting. When I go to any location, if I'm assuming I'm going to Iceland, to that beach, whatever, I know that I'm gonna get a golden hour shot, a blue hour, a night shot, which is three images during the day, and for the sunrise as well. So I calculate my shots. I know how many shots that I want. So I don't shoot during the bright day because I want shadows, highlights, and I'll show you later on light effect landscape. So when I go the first time for any location, I don't use the tripod. I simply go by my camera. And I consider the first day is not for shooting day. It's a scouting day. I need to feel the location. I need to understand. I need to find the right spot where I'm gonna put my camera. I need to check the light movement, the sun. So I simply go by my camera and I shoot handheld. You know, I'm gonna delete those images. This is for my own reference the second day. So I go very low and I go vertical, horizontal. I try multiple things that I reach the shot that I want. And I come the second day exactly where I was standing. So I know in the beginning that this is the scouting. You have to check the surrounding area. Maybe you will find many composition and many interesting elements. I'm gonna show you also later on. Patience, of course, you have to wait and wait and wait and wait, and especially for people, they want a certain look of light. Pre-visual, we already talked about pre-visual because we pre-visual things in advance. I know in advance what I want. I can just draw the image, and I go for implementation later on with my technical approach, and this is the technical approach. Ola, let me know when. Okay, thanks. Okay. First, our major elements. Strong subject, composition, light direction, nature elements, color, and technical approach. Okay. So we have those are the main elements that I implement during my photography. So all these points I'm going to show you in this image. When I'm talking about strong subject, yes, this is a strong subject. First of all, strong subject because not everyone can go to that place. Okay, anyone can go, but it's not that commercial. It's in Namibia. It's called the Dead Vlei. It's an old lake in the middle of the desert. You need to hike many dunes to reach that lake. And I'm talking about dunes. I'm not talking about dunes here. I'm talking about dunes. Some dunes are very high. So you need to walk a lot to be able to reach a certain time. It's a very impressive place. Even the campaign of Nikon, the D850, they shot the time lapse in Namibia because it's really outstanding location. And composition, because you have to know how to compose when you leave your subject off center, when you will have negative space in your composition, when you can add foreground to your composition. Then we have the light direction. Of course, this place is surrounded by dunes. So when the light go below the dunes, you will not see anything. It's dark. So there is a certain time of the day where the light will hide half of the dunes and the other is dark. So also you need to check the light situation and how the sun is moving. Nature elements, which is 2 dead trees in my composition. The colors, we will talk today about colors, how we understand colors, how we work with something called color wheel and color palette. For me, I know that this place is really cool for myself as an artist because I have mainly 3 colors, white, orange, and blue, which are matching each other. So then we have the technical approach. What I mean by technical approach, I decided to shoot on vertical mode. I really like shooting vertical mode, but I like also shooting with tilt shift lenses. Let me explain to you what is tilt shift lenses. So this is a tilt shift lens. I don't know if you can see, guys, but this lens you can shift up and down. So the camera will be straight and your lens will go up and down. This is to minimize the distortion in your composition, especially if you're shooting architectural for a building and you are very close. So you don't want to point the camera like that. So you want to point the camera straight and shift up and down to get the correct perspective. But I use it for landscape sometimes, especially for panorama mode. So I've been here on a pano mode. So I did vertical exposures. Each shot I was shooting definitely with the same settings. I'm using only a polarizer. Why? Because there is no clouds to use long exposure. I need only polarizer to be able to step down my exposure because I don't want to go above f16. I'll talk about f16 later. Yeah. No, that's the overlapping. No, you have to be very fast. Yeah, you have to overlap your shots, but depend how fast you are and if there is long exposure or not. But I'll show you later on another one. Don't worry. If you have a concern, just come to me and tell me, and we can discuss it. So I'm using tilt 24 millimeter here. I don't want to go for 19. I have 19. I have 24 because I don't want to shoot very wide. I want to compress my shot at more depth. So 24 focal length is great. So let's talk about vertical photography. I'm a big fan of vertical. What I mean by vertical, I showed you before, something called the L plate and shooting on vertical. So why we shoot vertical? We shoot vertical because we can put the subject into the image, okay? If you can check here, this is my story. I'm shooting also with tilt shift lens because I'm very close to the waterfall and I want to just frame at certain focal lengths. I want to get this story of the waterfall and some of the whatever the northern light. You can create more depth in your composition. I'll show you. It's amazing for printing. If you want to impress anyone, just shoot vertical and sell your prints. They sell very well. So people that love vertical mode. It's good also for rule of third. You can control your rule of third much better and more freedom in your composition. And I know so many people that love to shoot vertical, horizontal. Yeah, it's nice for landscape, but trust me, if you start training yourself on vertical mode and get closer to your subject, you will be impressed about the quality. So you have to choose the right lens. Not all the time you can shoot wide angle, ultra wide with vertical. It's depend on your composition. But for me, I do all my landscape with the tilt shift. Why the tilt shift? Regarding the distortion that you're going to have and you will avoid by tilt shift, the good thing about tilt shift is if you are very close to your subject and you're shifting on a vertical mode from down to up, you got your focus on the closest point till infinity. This is the role of tilt shift lenses. So that's why I really enjoy shooting tilt shift. Always go low or go high in your composition on a vertical mode. Invest in L bracket, which is for the camera. Don't get this tripod where you turn the camera like that. You will not achieve something. Just only use the ball head and the L bracket. And of course, use live view in your camera. You cannot do low shot and you go then by the viewfinder. It's better to check the live view. This is shot by D810, tilt shift 19, f4, 22nd, ISO 800. Okay, I'm going to show you the example between horizontal and vertical with the same lens. So this one shot in Iceland at the same time, but in the second shot I failed to get the light, the red light. It was the battery off for the headlamp. So depending on the composition. I just wanted to check the sky. Actually the northern light shape in that image and in that image. If I go for vertical here, it won't be that nice. But when I decided to went for vertical, when the northern light was changing and taking that shape, it's creating a nice depth in the composition. So this is an example of vertical and horizontal with the same lens at the same time. Again, we talked about depth. You need to create depth in your composition. This is a vertical mode. I can shift my lens up, down. I'm very low point. I can shift my tilt shaft a little bit down. I can get the foreground, the house, and the light on top. And even the shape of the light is really cool for a portrait mode. But for the landscape mode, this style of lighting or northern light, actually the shape is much better on the landscape mode. I just wanted to imagine and pre-visual this shot different way. So also I'm using 19 millimeter, 0.8, 22nd, and ISO 1200. Today I wanted to focus on my settings, which is the EXIF data. And follow me from now till the end of the presentation. And you will notice that I'm always within the same settings. And this is what we're going to explain about later on. Okay, also vertical, horizontal. Sometimes if you're shooting with 14, I cannot even get the top of the cave. But if I rotate my camera to vertical mode, I can get the entire, and it's look like a face. Okay, so this is also the creativity or the freedom of using vertical pano mode, vertical mode. Yeah. We will talk about something called stacking focus, or we'll talk about something called hyperfocal distance. Our next slide. So, yeah, you can stack one picture here, and one on the house, and the sky. No, of course. Okay, I'm gonna talk about. Yeah. You're right, no, but we will talk about this later on. So, we already explained about vertical and horizontal. Same location, same day, same timing. I'm shooting horizontal. Then I decided to shift for vertical. So I can have more depth in my composition because this is my hero and this is my hero. So this is also will give you more option and room to shoot. Now, okay, we're shooting with D810, 1424, and D10 because I want to do some long exposure. And I'm shooting at f11, 20 seconds, 64 ISO. Yes. Now, let's talk about lighting, color, timing. This picture in so I'm shooting with 24. I'm using f11, 5 seconds, ISO 64. I decided to go very low to get the composition, and I decided to push the boat on the right side because I want to break the rule to have something in the middle, which is off center. We will talk about it in the composition part. So what kind of light we have for landscape? When we shoot, how we chase the light, how we know if today is going to be a nice sunset or not, which is, you will be impressed about the technology that we have these days. So for me, I really love for landscape photography golden hour. I'm not a blue hour for landscape. I prefer blue hour for cities because you have more light coming from the buildings. But of course, for golden hour, it's much nicer. So you get so many shadows, so many lights. Golden hour is the magical hour. This is during sunset. This is the time when the sun reaches the horizon. You will reduce your contrast. You will have a dramatic mood. You can diffuse your sun by having some clouds between the sun and the view, actually. Or you can go for sunburst, having the sun as a star in the middle. Blue hour, it's the opposite way. It's after the golden hour. For landscape, it's too flat. Sometimes I feel that you need light. You need something vibrant from the city. You need long exposure. You need movement, since the shots of Dubai that famous during blue hour. But you still can, in landscape, do some blue hour. So this is where I start using ND filter, F6, ND6, 3, or 10. Night photography. Also night photography, one of the, what we call it nightscape in landscape photography. You need to understand how to chase the Milky Way, when to shoot, how to plan your Milky Way in your composition, what kind of application to use, to check the pollution in the area, and it requires lots of efforts to achieve a Milky Way shot. This is mainly at night. You will have some nightscapes also with the moon. I'm not a big fan of Milky Way, speaking. Why I'm not a big fan of Milky Way? Because I see every day thousands of Milky Way shots. So I'm not against, I do sometimes, but I still prefer doing real night photography, okay, relying on the moon, because the moon affects the same as the sun, because you will have light. So when the moon rises behind you till in front of the composition, light is changing, contrast is changing at night. And it's easy for you to focus at night if there is a moon. So I still love nightscape, which is real nightscape without having the Milky Way all the time. So how we plan the right timing. So, some applications. Let me jump into the applications, which will give you the timing during the day based on your location, because is rotating, and every place in this world, the time is completely different. In Dubai, we have the blue hour. You know what we call it? The blue minute. The blue hour in Dubai, it's 1 minute or 2 minutes. We don't have time to do pano or to stitch images if there is no exposure, because light is changing very fast. Well, if you go to countries, if you go more into the north, you will see some countries that the blue hour is for 4 hours. We spend 4 hours shooting the blue hour. We enjoy photography, you know, because it's completely different. That's why we travel and invest in money. So very important to check your location and to start knowing when the golden hour, when the nautical hour, when the sunset, when the moon rise, etc. What kind of apps that we need for that? I use something called PhotoPills. PhotoPills is a very cool application. You will know the sunrise, moonrise. You know when the golden hour exactly on your location, and you don't need internet for that. It's based on GPS. It will give you all the information that you want, actually. You know, like 3 years ago, I went to a country, I don't know, it's an island in Asia. And I didn't do this research about where the moon or where the sun will rise or during the sunset. And I went to the beach. I went to the beach, and I was just sitting waiting for that. And I noticed that the sun will not go from that side. It's from the mountain, because I live in Dubai and I know the sun goes from the sea. So it's very important. Do not underestimate and go by those details. So it's required to give you this application, your location, sunset, sunrise, the timing, and you can plan your shoot. Also, you have the moon phase for the Milky Way, when we can start getting dark sky or moon phase. Okay. So how we know the shadows, the light? I'll give you an example. We want to go to HIPA, okay? But if you want to go to HIPA, we don't know how the stars will look like, how the shadows of the mountains will look like. So there's an application called PPE 3D, okay? So it will give you prediction in 3D modeling about the area where you are and how the light are shifting from day to night. So when you know your shadows, how they are moving, and you can just get the right composition. So some people, they travel to New Zealand, but they don't have experience. For me, I know by heart because I've been there. But if I'm going to a location, I will never know what the shadows and lights. So I need to rely on certain model application, or I have to spend 2-3 days counting the light. Even the light are changing every day due to many other facts. So to get accurate one, you have to go by something called PPE 3D. Maybe I can show you something at the end of the presentation. I'm sorry. Okay. So you simply scroll by timing, and you will see the light changing. Oh, we have lots of shadows here. I want that shadow. So this is for prediction of shadows and light. Can we predict if today is going to be color for the sky? Anyone can predict if tomorrow we have a beautiful sunrise with colors? Question? Okay. That's it. This is also an application from TPE. This is for those people who are really accurate, but this is only available in State and Europe. It can predict the weather at the sunset, how colorful, and based on your location, and will give you from poor to great. If it's great color, great light, and great information. So you see, those are technology stuff and applications. Why we spend, I don't know, $2,000 for iPhone or $1,000 just to call? You have the technology, use it based on your compass, based on your GPS. This is where you need to start thinking as a landscape photographer. If you don't have experience about the location, don't get me wrong. I know if I go to Iceland on that place, I know what the light will be because I've been there before. But if you're going for the first time, you will never know. And even if you're doing a corporate shoot in Dubai and you're shooting for a client, you don't know when the sun is going to rise behind Burj Khalifa to get the starburst. Rely on application. So it's very easy for us to use the current technology in the market. So this one called Skyfire. It's prediction based on cloud type determination, cloud height prediction, gap light. But of course, you cannot predict what will happen last minute. I like to shoot all my shots before or after the storm. I'm not that kind of person that I go into the middle of the storm to get the shot. So if you are a storm chaser, this is something completely different, okay? Which is we don't have storm chaser in the Middle East. But if you really want nice shots with clouds and sun, very sun warm, and you need a certain timing, which is before the sunset, before the storm, and after the storm. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. We can have break like 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay. ليه ما في تفاصيل؟ لا بالعكس عم هينهم حياتهم بدهم يعرفوا قدين السانست حلو. كل حاجه رجع لك يلا بس بسرعه لانه don't touch it. No, it's okay.
10 درهم ايش فيك تعطينا
خصني نيكون رئيس نيكون انا شو خصني يا اعطيني بس شكلي ارجع لك بس دقيقه اوكي هلا بالله اهلا الناس ما بتعرف انه في تو بريدكت اللايت they complain how we get this beautiful light كان عندي فرصه بس in some of the items ولا بدك تيجي معنا ساعة بس اكلك وشربك واوتيلك اعمل لك ما بدك منك ساعة بس ساعة والله اذا تيجي معنا تفرج ولا قلت لك محل ما تعرف الهم ما دام ورك شوب يعني بيعمل لك حسب قد ايه اكل وشرب في الاوتيل جيب مرتك كنت بتطلع هو عم تعمل معك بس عم تتكلم معك اليوم المارينا من فوق بس انا كنت على الحبس هنا انحبست المخابرات الجيش اخذونا على تحقيق 7 ساعات تحقيق عملوا ديليت لكل الصور على التحقيق بس خوف شوي بعدنا عن لبنان بس اصلا لبنان بتطلع على بالشتاء عواصف بدك تسالني شي سؤال؟ تفضل
بكون صار لك 8 سنوات من يوم بدأت.
ايه
قبل ما كنت
جديا 4 سنين. جديا 4 سنين.
متى بدأت يعني؟
بدأت من 7 سنين بس كنت بلعب هيك مثل أي مصور بيلعب بالكاميرا بس من 4 سنين أخذتها جدية شغل.
فترة بسيطة ما شاء الله.
وصل يعني في كثير نعم. انا ما بشتغل بس تصوير انا مشكلتي انا فكري كله بالحياه تسويق وبزنس بعرف كيف اسوق حالي اشتغل بزنس ايه بقول لك كثير ناس رائعين عملت 3 4 بالامارات عمليه وتخييم نشوف يعني وبعطيك رقمي ايه صالح شرفنا بعطيك رقم موبايلي صالح فيك ترسلنا على الواتساب تبعت لي وانا شو بتعوز مني زيرو 050 سوري 5 1 نعم شوف Test. That? طالع صوتي؟ عم تسمعيني؟ طالع صوتي؟ Can you hear me? Okay. Let me show you the simulation of the application because so many people that ask me about it. So
The Photographers of Hemerus 3D. See how the light will fall on the land day or night, anywhere on Earth.
So you scroll the light, the timing. It will give you prediction in the future.
Explore the light in 3 dimensions. Sunlight, moonlight, starlight.
Very cool.
View sunrise from the future.
This is the last part actually about the sunset. The same company, they have the application for the prediction of the light. They have the prediction also for how the sky is colorful. Technical. So till we fix this problem, someone asked me how, I think, gentleman here, he asked me how many years I've been doing photography. So I've been doing photography for 4 years as a hobby in the beginning, and the last 4 years as a career actually, and I made my name. But there's something very important. Maybe I'm not a great photographer. There are so many good photographers in the region, in Dubai, globally, whatever. They are much talented than me, but the difference that I know how to do business. I know how to market myself. So as a photographer, yeah. Yeah, as a photographer, you need to start thinking as a company, as a depreciation, how you charge your client money, how you sell your images. You need to understand also copyrights. Do we give exclusive rights or we give based on contract? So you need to go into the business of photography. You will not succeed if you don't have the business. I know so many talented people that are unknown because they don't know how to use social media. They don't know how to run exhibitions. They don't know how to approach clients and agencies and to work with brands. And I feel sorry sometimes. I receive thousands of messages, thank you, about people telling me how we can make money. And he's not a real photographer. He can start photography. So if you want to start photography by thinking to make money, trust me, you're going to fail. Do it first from your heart, do it as a passion, and then go into the technical and creativity part. So it's very difficult, actually. And few people, they can reach a certain level in life. So business is the essential, actually, for this. OK, now, let's talk about colors. You know who can succeed in photography, in my opinion? Girls. Because they know how to dress. They know how to choose the colors. Which color is matching the other. Us guys, you know, even for me, I can wear black on gray, whatever. So sometimes, you know, even for me, I don't understand colors as good as my wife. She's perfect in colors. So, but as a photographer, you need to start educating yourself, learning the color wheel in photography, which colors are matching. So how the colors are affecting by the light condition. So the red, we still red if the light is 3 p.m., 12, or 8 a.m. So things are, you need to go more into studies and to understand. I cannot explain all this today because we need more than, I don't know, we need more than 10 hours talking about small details. So I still prefer to go through all the presentation because we have another 300 slides today. Okay, so colors. I like to use the color wheel. I like to combine my images, colors in my, thank you. I like to combine the colors in my images. Let's go for this example. I have the blue and I have the orange, yellowish in the sky. They are matching each other. They are perfect. So that's the color wheel. That's the gradation starting from the blue to the bright. Imagine I have orange sky. I don't think it's good, or gray sky. So you need also to go by this in post-production to learn how to change colors in post-production, but of course not changing everything. Another composition, everything is matching. The white is matching the blue. That's real degradation. Why we go to Iceland? Because we want that color. We want that black sand that create contrast with golden grass. We need this beautiful mountains matching. All the colors are the same in my composition. There are no many colors, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7. We have the blue, we have the black, and we have the yellow. So this is also very important. Let's talk about the technical approach. What I mean by technical approach. What are the best settings that I use? When we use ND filters, when we don't use ND filters, how we do static focus, how we work with high focal distance for photography. I'm going to show you many things related to that. First of all, exposure triangle. I'm assuming everyone knows what is the exposure triangle, because when you start as a photographer, the basic is to learn the relation between the exposure, the shutter speed, the ISO, and the aperture, I mean. So which one is the best for landscape? So if we're shooting landscape, we need to shoot at 2.8. Not because we want maximum depth of field. We don't want to focus on that part and other part to be blurry because we're not doing macro, we're not doing food. So first, let's talk about the aperture. Open aperture, you have depth of field, you have more light coming to your sensor. Higher aperture between f8 to f16, even to f22, everything is in focus and sharp. So this is our best aperture for landscape. You will notice that I always shoot between f8 and f16. This is my best aperture for my photography. Why f8? Because f8 is something we call sweet spot in the lens. So you got the sharpest point on your lens at f8. So I like to shoot at f8 a lot, but sometimes it's overexposed. So this is where we need to compensate our exposure with ND filters. So I'm going to show you examples. I'm going to explain that. ISO, I'm always on very low ISO, 6400. I'm talking about normal landscape, unless I'm going for night photography, which requires something called 400 or 500 rules. Shutter speed, always my is very low. I don't want to freeze anything. I'm a big fan of long exposure. So sometimes I go for 3-4 minutes exposure time. Depend on the artistic look, and I'll show you some examples for that. So this is my combination, actually. Another important thing in the camera, you don't need to go everything by this camera, the manual, the information, the technical part. You simply get exposure triangle and histogram to be able to see if you are overexposed or underexposed in your image, if you are bracketing or if you're doing single exposure. So it's very easy. On the right side, it's the overexposed, and on the left side is the underexposed. So make sure all the time your images are within the minimum, which is the mid. And you can notice that the histogram, you can read it if you're clipping the shadows or highlights. So this is what you need to learn as a landscape photographer, how to deal with the histogram and how to read it and how to get the perfect composition, the perfect exposure. Of course, metering, light metering. We have spot metering, we have the center weight metering, and we have the matrix metering. The spot metering is for macro photography if you want the light, the sensor of the light to be reflected on certain part, or if you want it to be center weighted, which is for portrait or something. But for me, I'm doing landscape. I want the light to be distributed on the entire sensor, which is the 3D modeling. I don't know in Canon what they call it. Anyone knows Canon? This is a Nikon. In Canon, it's, evaluate, something like that. So I always go for matrix meter, which is I want the light to be distributed on the entire sensor. Now, we go for hyperfocal distance. It's very complicated, the task. Hyperfocal distance. What is hyperfocal distance? I'm going to make it very easy. You have one element, you have two elements, and you have three elements. Let's assume this is our foreground. We have a flower. This is the lake or some rocks in the middle. And in the infinity part, we have a mountain. How can we achieve a shot where we are very close to the flower or to the rock, and you have focus till infinity? So everything is sharp and focused. So this is when we implement something called hyperfocal distance. It's the distance between my lens to the subject, and then from the subject to infinity. Each lens focuses a certain distance. So you have to know first your lens, what is the distance, the focus distance part scale actually for your lens. And you have to download some hyperfocal distance, depend if you're shooting with a crop sensor, and it's completely different than FX, which is medium format. But hyperfocal distance is really hard sometimes to achieve because you need to measure your lens to the subject, and you need lots of experience, and most of the time people fail. So I like to replace it by another technique, which is called the stacking focus. So instead of taking one single exposure, everything is focused, I go for stacking focus, where I can focus on each part of the image, and I can combine them together to get maximum depth of field. So stacking focus, this is what I'm explaining about. The good thing about the new Nikon A5, they have a stacking focus option where you can let the camera stack the images for you. It will calculate the distance between each focus point, and it will give you up to 300 images focused on each part. But in landscape, we don't need 300. We're not doing macro photography. This is mainly for macro photographer. In landscape, we want maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I really care about the edge be focused, because when we're shooting with wide angle, ultra wide angle lenses, you see it at the edge, it's very soft sometimes. So this is where we go by focus stacking, and of course, the close subject to the image. And you need to merge those images together in Photoshop. So this is stacking focus. I'm going to show you an example. Those are my sequences. I decided to shoot from very low point. I'm sorry, you can see the quality here because you know, it's not high resolution. So I was very close here, and I want to get everything sharp in focus in my composition till infinity. So at one single shot, it was really hard. I had some depth of field in the foreground. What I did, I took multiple shots, and I moved my focus point from corner to corner, and I combined all together as stacking focus. But for stacking focus, you need to be very careful. If you're doing a long exposure, you need to stack focus long exposure. And you have clouds, it's really hard to stitch the images together. So you need to learn also technical part. We're not going to talk today about digital blending, because I'm famous by one single exposure guy. I'm not a digital blender person. Maybe so many people, they told me you are a very old school. Yes, I'm an old school person. I shoot the old school way. I'm not into doing hundreds of exposures and blendings. I know how to do it, but this is not my vision. Okay, I know my friend Daniel, he's one of the best in Dubai, and I learned a lot of him. But I still prefer, excuse me? Yeah, he's one of the best, you know, how to stack, how to do all this digital blending, multiple exposure, working with bracketing. I'm a single exposure person. When you attend my workshop, I'm going to show you how you can get everything in one shot. Okay, sometimes, of course, we need to stack focus, but this is what I do, please. Sometimes yes, sometimes not, but even my tilt shift is not wide enough. It's 19 millimeter. So I'm shooting here almost with 14 millimeter. So for 14, you will have lots of issues because you are very close to the foreground. But even in tilt shift, it's not accurate sometimes that everything is sharp. It's really hard to control it. Plus, I'm going to explain something for you as a stacking focus people. When we stack focus, I'm talking about Nikon users. I stack focus not on the viewfinder. I stack focus first on autofocus, and I put my focus on a single mode, and I use the live view, because if you look to the viewfinder and you are trying to move your focus point, you cannot go out of the frame on the sensor. But if you go to live view screen, you press the live view, and you see that your focus point, you can move it from corner to corner. And this is what I really care about. It's the edge, because I'm shooting wide all the time. So there are some techniques that you need to implement to achieve it. I cannot explain everything. I cannot show you all this, because I'm sorry, those things you need to attend the workshop, because it's really hard to explain here. Or you have to practice by yourself. Yes, I can stack. No, it's fine. It's fast. You know, I don't stack 300 images. I stack 5 images, 6 images. So I don't need to go by extreme. So let's talk about long exposure. I'm a big fan of long exposure photography. We talk about long exposure, about holders, filters, ND Grad. I'm complaining about ND Grad. Neutral density Grad filters, okay, and reverse Grad. Okay, so I told you before that I use 3-stop for blue hour, because I don't want to go longer exposure than 30 seconds sometimes. And I go sometimes for 6-stop for golden hour, and I go sometimes for 10-stop for very long exposure. This is reality. This is reality. This is long exposure. It's very simple. You can create something out of nothing. This is your role as an artist to enhance this. You see the clouds here, they are very boring. The water, it's like tourist shot. So you need to create something out of this. I was shooting here during the sunset, the blue hour. You see, it's very blue. And I decided to go for 3-stop to be able to go for 30-second exposure and to be able to get this beautiful silky water and a little bit of cloud movement on top because of the long exposure period time. Okay, and I decided to get some foreground to add more depth to my composition, which is the ice that will give you bright in the dark, which is fine. So why we create long exposure? Because we want to create art. We want to control the light. We cannot control the light. So many people, they do this mistake. We go on location, and you say, okay, shoot now at f22 and go with my exposure for 1 second. I say, yes, but why you need to go for f22? You can shoot at f8, which is your sweet point in your lens, and then compensate the difference by using ND filter. This is the logical. It's not, don't be smart and try to go for f22, because for me personally, depend on the lens. f22, you will have some diffraction in the lens. So wherever you go for above f16, I'm maybe some lenses, they don't have diffraction. I'm talking about very expensive lenses, and even some lenses in Nikon. But I don't like to shoot f/20. I shoot at f/16. That's my maximum aperture, and f/8. This is the best. So this way I get everything sharp and clear. So it's always good to compensate by using the filters. Sometimes I use ND filters during a normal shot. I don't need to do long exposure. But I cannot get darker the sky. I cannot darken the scene. It's too bright. There is too sun. I use them only just to compensate by my light by 3-stop or something. So to blur the water, for moving clouds where we do long exposure, I'll show you lots of examples about that. We can remove elements from our composition if we have people are moving or cars and we want empty. So long exposure is the solution. If we do night photography, we call it long exposure without filter. But at the end, it's long exposure because you're going for 20 seconds, 30 seconds for night. And to create light trails when you have the roads and the streets and the cars, which is the famous shots. What we need? We need a neutral density filters. I showed you before. We need a polarizer. I use polarizer on the ND. I'll show you how we can combine Grad filter, polarizer, and ND filter. So it's a combination while we're shooting. So I like to use 3, 6, and 10. I can sometimes combine 2 to achieve 16 stops. Do exposure time of 6 minutes. Sometimes when you see those beautiful images, fine art photography, real fine art, like long exposure, they go for up to 8 minutes, you know. But you need to know how to work with the settings. And I use Grad and reverse Grad and polarizer. Why I use polarizer in landscape? Because I want to remove reflection sometimes from water surface. So polarizer will help me to go 1 stop below or 2 stop, and will help me to remove reflection in my composition. If I'm shooting water and I want to get everything below the water without the sun reflection on the water. So I use polarizer, and my polarizer is not rotating, it's a square. It's here, same as this one. And I use a Grad and reverse Grad. Let me just show you a few things about the filters. Yeah, talking about the reverse Grad filter. So that's the reverse Grad. Let me show you some normal picture. Okay. Anyway, the reverse is on the horizon. First, because we want here to be bright, because we want to brighten our foreground, because we want all the details, especially if we're shooting landscape and we have so many rocks. We want to control the amount of light only on the horizon if the sunrise or sunset is within the horizon. I'm not above, I'm looking within, which is exactly what I want as a landscaper. And I want the sky to be bright. So this is what they do the job. Bright, dark, bright. So this is used mainly for landscape. So many people, they like to do multiple exposure or bracketing and do it in post-production. I have to be honest. I need to teach you the photography, the old classic way. You want to be more into post-production, it's your call. But at least try this in real life. Some images you cannot achieve on landscape level, especially if you're doing seascape with movement of water. You cannot bracket because you have waves are coming to your side. So the shot and move. You don't have time to bracket 3, 4 images. And at the end, you cannot just take one shot and move and take another shot. When you bracket, you cannot because you need to stitch and align the images. Of course, you cannot do it. Impossible. So you need to go by single exposure by using the correct filter and balance your exposure between the foreground and the sky. So Grad, polarizer, and ND filter. And by using good filters, you still can add so many filters together. So this is the one, and I can add another 2 on top. So it's perfect for landscape. Okay, let me show you a few landscape shots. Okay, this is a Canon. I was using D800, using Nikon 1424. I tried to get not a stacking focus. It was impossible to stack multiple shots here. I did only one picture, but at least I measured my distance from the lens to the foreground to get it at least focused. Maybe it's not 100% focused, but it was really hard shot. And I decided to add some Grad filter, because in Grad filter, you have something called soft edge and hard edge. So you have two types of Grad filter. Soft edge for light sky, and hard edge when you want this grungy sky look, like this sky. So this is when you need to learn also. When you have the kit, you can notice which sky and which filter I need to use. So I added some Grad filter hard edge 0.9, because they start with 0.3, 0.6, and 0.9. So the sky, it was already too dark. I don't want to dark it more. And I said, okay, I need to dark it a little bit by using some 9 stop. Oh, sorry, no, I'm using 9 stop here. It was already bright sky. أكيد بعد السيشن. شو؟ ما في بتشوفين على القريب. Here? This is part of the planning I was talking about. When I'm showing you images today, those images contain your experience as a photographer, timing, lighting, application, planning, studying the light, following the weather. You know, it's a multiple things. Even the when you are a photographer, you are on location, you have to have everything. I really feel bad sometimes when I go do landscape photography and I see people doing Instagram stories while you are on location or talking on the phone. You have to live inside your viewfinder. You have to be complete off. You have to show respect to nature. If you don't show respect to nature, you will not get rewarded by any image. This is you know, of course it's not rules at the end, but you have to be more dedicated to your work. Okay, long exposure. I'm using 1424. I had a very boring sky here. I was shooting in the summer in HIPA. This is HIPA Dam Lake. And I'm talking about to be patient in photography. And I said, okay, I'm going to stay here. I don't know, maybe some miracle will happen, something in the sky. I only just need one cloud. And I was so lucky because some clouds are moving. And the good thing, the sunset is behind me. So I got some nice light on the clouds. I'm using here 1424. I'm going very low in my composition. I'm using polarizer to be able to show what's under the water, not only the bright waters, you know, reflection. So, and I'm shooting with f11, 30 seconds at ISO 100. Another long exposure. I'm showing you here cityscape, but honestly speaking, cityscape, landscape, they are the same in terms of technical. But here, our course is mainly for long exposure. So this is Nikon D810, 1424. I'm using hard edge 0.9 to the sky, and I'm using 13 stop. So my exposure time is at f8 is 60 seconds. Why I need to do long exposure here? Because I don't want anything from this fancy boats moving in the water. I removed everything because it's long exposure. Plus, I can get some nice clouds moving, so it's more artistic to view or signature. Sometimes I have some clients that ask me for corporate. My client is Jumeirah Group. They ask me, we want something new for Burj Arab. I say, yes, let me think, because all the images are the same. And I decided to go and do first composing correctly, do stacking focus. I was focusing on very close part, and I decided also to focus on Burj Arab, and I did long exposure to be able to create this artistic view, which is the client, I like it at the end, because he told me, oh, this is something new. We never had something like that. Nikon D800, 1424, of course, wide angle, 10 stop, polarizer, also at f8, 30 second, ISO 100. Yes? Excuse me? No, impossible the boat to reach here, unless it's jet ski. Because this is the coast, you can stand here. No, if there is anything moving in your composition and you're shooting long exposure, it disappears. Any human, cars, anything. If you're going for very long exposure, if you're going for 5 seconds, it will show. But if you're going for 60 seconds, everything will disappear. Sometimes, you know, if they're standing and moving like that, you will see them. So you need to clean them in Photoshop. So it depends on how longer, and You have to choose actually the right time, because I want it to be empty. Because this client, they want to take this image to print it during the... Yes. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's go for now some landscape. We will talk today a lot about composition, how we compose. But let me show you here long exposure, but it's not very long exposure. My exposure time here is 2 seconds, because when we do seascape and we have movement waves, we don't want to have too much, we lose this texture. We want this flow of water to be naturally like that, artistic. So it's always go between 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. It depends how fast is the water. Very challenging picture, by the way. This is also in Iceland. By the way, it wasn't like that. I decided to bring those icebergs, to put them like that, to create this design. You have to think out of the box. I was just standing 2 hours trying to hold big chunk of ice. It was freezing, and I put them like that, and every time I decided to take the shot, the wave very fast come and take the iceberg, and I have to go again to the ocean to bring it back, and people were looking at me, this guy is crazy. And yes, of course, this is my job, because naturally you cannot get like that. You know, you have to create this. Sometimes, yes, because all the icebergs coming from the mountain to the ocean, and the ocean throws it back to the coast. So the composition change every 5 seconds. So sometimes you need to be smart and to create something. Another, I wanted to get this long exposure, so I decided 6 stop, because I don't want to go for 10 stop and long exposure. 6 stop was enough to compensate my exposure. I used some polarizer because I want to remove some reflection from the icebergs. And I'm shooting at f16, 2 seconds, ISO 64. I've been using here also reverse Grad 09, because I want to darken the sky, and I implement, bless you, I implement the rule of third here, which is 20% sky and 80% from the ground, because this is where the story, this is where the action is happening. This is not my story here. This is, I'm going to talk about in the composition part, but this is also long exposure, not too much long. At night, we do long exposure. When you open 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but definitely we don't use ND filters at night. We simply shoot with the lens. That's it. We don't need anything. So 2.8, someone asked me if we're shooting landscape at 2.8, you're not going to get blurry. But because if I have some very close subject, of course, I'm going to have depth of field. But I'm shooting very wide from very far, so 2.8, I get everything sharp. What do you mean? You can go with D810, you can go up to 6,400, and your noise is very little. Yeah, but if you're shooting in Iceland and you have the aurora, when it appears, it will give you light. It will bright your scene. You will be impressed as if like a festival. So there is some light, but you need to understand also how bright is the aurora, because it keeps changing. So it's not steady. So it's very challenging how to. I'm going to tell you how I shoot the aurora actually, and how people they can manage to shoot it. So we do long exposure at night, of course. This is famous Dubai. This is where I live here, actually. Yeah. Okay. And this is 5.6, 20 seconds, 64. I'm not going to talk about filter because there is no filter. In the day, I use filter. I was shooting at night without filter, but in the day, it's too bright. This is where I need to go for 10 stop. Because if the same scene, different settings. You see the clouds here, the fog, they are like a chunk of cotton. They are steady like that, standing. And I don't like them during the day. During the night, they are cool because they are bright by the city movement. But during the day, it's good to create this flow as if it's wave. Create this because the fog are moving with the wind. You need to go for long exposure to achieve that beautiful, we call it fine art look, actually. So I'm shooting here with 10 stop, also at f11, 30 seconds, ISO 64. All my settings are very the same. You know, I'm not just doing something outstanding. It's just like my between f8 to f16, that's it. And I compensate by the filters. You're asking me? No, I I give a tip, everyone, for rooftop. You know, this rooftop issue in Dubai, it's very famous, okay? Everyone can get access to rooftop. I'm not that guy that I sneak to buildings and I go against the law in Dubai. Some people, they pay money for security, okay? And they sneak to rooftops. I go by safety measurement. I have my name in the country. I'm well known on social media. I work with many agencies. I did many jobs for the government. So I like to keep maintaining good name. I have so many enemies, by the way. So many enemies, you can't imagine. Especially when you are a photographer, you start having too many stories about you. So I like to be legal. So I always ask for permission because I have my license, my own license. I have my own company. Sometimes they ask me for money. Sometimes they ask me for images in return. I have no problem to support if they support me. I've been invited to many friends, photographers. They tell me, okay, come with us. But recently in Dubai, it's become very hard to get access to the shop due to safety. And we watched before this girl. She came to Dubai. She was, yes, thank her. She helped us a lot, especially the photographer community in Dubai. No one can get access anymore. But I don't suggest that you pay money and you sneak to any building. Always, you can have it done, but you need to have a license as well. The same effect. It's very risky. So this is not our topic today. We will discuss it later. Okay, long exposure. Yes. Yes. I'll tell you how I measure this. First of all, you need to work with metering from your camera. I use the camera without any ND. I just go for aperture. I put my aperture that I like, actually, which is f8, and I take a picture. And I can read my shutter speed is 120, whatever, over 20. Then I go to application. There is an application. And I said for the application, this is my shutter speed, 20. This is my aperture, f8. I'm going to use ND10. And it will give you the calculation, the time that you need to open. So this is a calculation also. You need to go through. No, sometimes I see that if I go for f8, I need to go for ND 13 stop. If I go for 13 stop, I need to open more than 60 seconds. And you know, sometimes when I'm shooting for rooftop and you have phone, you don't have time to experiment. You want to get the shot, you are excited. So it's not like sitting landscape, blue hour for 2 hours. No, because the fog are moving. Yeah. But you need to attend some real courses and workshops on field to learn how to do it. I'm sorry, I cannot teach you everything here. If I teach you everything here, I'm not going to make money. I want to make money, so you have to attend backward. This is what I do for a living. You're a pilot. You're getting paid well. So anyway, long exposure for night photography. Last year, we had some storm in Dubai. Of course, I've been chasing the storm, and I know that there is a storm coming. And everyone were composing in Dubai. All the photographers were going to Burj Khalifa, doing the same classic. And I said, okay, you know something? Every year, I'm doing the same, shooting Burj Khalifa with the Tesla on top of Burj Khalifa. Let me create something new, different. I know by heart this location. I love it because I saw it many times with many people in Dubai. And I decided to go there. And I pre-visual in the beginning. I know that this is my composition. I wait for the strike to hit above the Burj Al Arab, because, bless you. So it was planned, not by chance. But the funny thing, to get the strike shots, you need to shoot on bulb mode and stand next to the camera and open. When it's done, you close. When I was standing on the beach there, it was scary because the lighting hit almost close to the ocean. And I know by heart that so many photographers in the world, they have problems with light striking because even the tripod can grab the electrical. So what's the best solution? I have a small device. It's a trigger device. It can read any light in the sky, and the shutter will open automatically. So what I did, I covered my camera, and I took the device, ready on the camera, and I went maybe 200 meters high somewhere. Okay, I'm just drinking coffee, and then I got the shot. So there is no effort. You have to think. So this is the same also for landscape. You're going to face the same situation. So you need that small triggering device. If you want to ask about this device, it's called MPOS, something like that. It's just a small device. So I'm using tilt shift lens here because I want to get those lines straight. I don't want distortion. So this is my framing. I don't want wider than that. So I decided to shoot with tilt shift, and I'm shooting at f5, 6 shutter speed, and 64 ISO. Okay, now, things that I consider when I do photography. Yeah. 100%. بدك تشوف الرو؟ I'll show you. بعدين. Sure. Okay, so those are the main things that I consider. I don't have to go by very complicated settings of the camera. I'm talking long exposure. We have so many challenges when we do long exposure. We have something called diffraction. We have noise. We have something called hot spots on your sensor because you open your sensor up to 2, 3, 4 minutes sometimes. So when you go to the raw file, you see red spots because the sensor it got heated. So this is where you need to start implementing noise reduction to be able to reduce the noise. So anyway, sweet point, f8, f11, f16, fine, but f8 that I love. If I have son, I'm going to call him f8. Lowest ISO for long exposure, I'm always on 64 to 100. You don't want to do long exposure with high ISO. So you go for longer exposures. Why you need to increase your ISO and to have soft? Because when you add ISO high to your image, dispatch the part of the grain, the noise, but the image will be more soft. So I don't want to lose contrast in the image. Neutral density filter, of course, we talk about it. Steady tripod, steady, invest in a very good tripod. Don't invest in those small, low quality tripods. Trust me, it's more important than even the lens and the camera. Solid body head, cable release. I always shoot on manual focus. Professionals, landscapers, food photographers, any kind of photographer, professional, he is always on manual focus. We don't use autofocus. Autofocus for people that do event, fashion, even beauty, we do autofocus, manual focus, because you can control more your focus and you can get something called precise focus in your composition. Active delight, Nikon users, they know what is active delight in the camera. Try to make it off. I'm going to give you this. This is the result of years of experience. If you implement this, you're safe on long exposure. Manual focus, active delight off. VR, which is the vibration reduction. Make sure it's off. You don't want any interfering from the mechanical of the lens. Auto ISO, it's always off. Go low ISO, don't put it on auto ISO. Closing the viewfinder of your camera. When you shoot long exposure, have the viewfinder. If you're opening your shutter and there is some light coming through the viewfinder, it will affect your image. So try to close it. Good thing about Nikon users, we have some viewfinder that we can close, but Canon, they don't have to put some shirt or something. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'll tell you something, okay? I'll tell you something. No matter what you are, what kind of equipment you have, you are a Nikon, Canon. If you don't have the brain as an artist, you will fail. The brand, it's not important. Trust me. I know so many people, they send me messages, I'm going to move from Canon to Nikon. It's better high dynamic range. I said, why do you need high dynamic range? Are you going to go shoot f16 against the sun all the day? You know, you have to be smart. Invest in equipment. Canon, great. Nikon, great. Sony, you're not great. So Sony, my only issue with Sony is the mirrorless cameras. The batteries are drained very fast. And when you go to country like very cold, like Iceland, the battery will last for 5 minutes because of the cold. So I like to have also some weather sealing body, which is Nikon, they offer this. Yeah, of course. You know, I'm not that kind of person that Apple versus Microsoft or X versus Y. For me, it's like me, what I want and what I want to achieve. So try to cover the camera. Sometimes I do this, wait, you see, I have it here. Long exposure, but since I'm shooting with tilt shift lens sometimes. So the tilt shift lens, especially for architectural here, when you shift up and down, the lens is moving. There's some light coming from through the camera. So this is, it will affect, you will have some spots, light spots. The good thing is to cover your camera by a shirt. I have a shirt. I should simply put it on the camera like what I'm shooting. Yeah. Yeah, I can't fit anymore, you know. Okay. So it's good to close the, to cover the camera. I like to remove the camera strap because if you're doing long exposure and there is some wind, the strap of the camera will shake the camera. So make sure that it's removed. You know, those fancy, colorful stuff I don't like at all. So make sure that without it. Of course, checking your histogram after each shot. If you can stack focus, hyperfocal distance as well, which one you prefer, just train yourself on. Auto white balance, I'm always on auto white balance. Sometimes I change my white balance to cloudy to see it, to imagine the look in post-production. But I go back to auto white balance. I always shoot raw. I like to shoot panorama. It's my favorite because in pano, I can print huge. I have sometimes some clients, they want a huge files. I do exhibitions, I sell images. So I really care about high megapixel and pano pictures, which is I can print it large and can be satisfied. And noise reduction, excuse me, noise reduction in camera, I'll get back to you just a second. In camera, you have the dot pixels, which is if you open your shutter to 2-3 minutes. Mainly this is bad thing about Nikon, but I hope they fix it. In Canon, they don't have this problem. So you have the hot pixels. So to avoid the hot pixels, you have two options. Even you go in post-production and you start cleaning those green, red, or blue spots, or you run a noise reduction. But the problem when you run noise reduction, if your image is 60-second exposure, it will take double that amount to save on your card. So you shoot and you wait, saving. So yeah, so if you're shooting, I don't know, pano or you don't have time, it's really hard to, okay? And try to lock your focus. If I'm shooting long, if I'm focusing on live view, I get a scotch tape, put it on my focus, so focus on the lens. So this is also what I do all the time. This is some images I can shoot against the sun, achieve beautiful doing long exposure for 4, 6, 7 minutes, and this is what we call art. We can implement this on corporate, landscape, and cityscape. Who was asking a question? I didn't get you. Yeah, when we do panorama, I'm going to do an exercise for you. I was so close to tell you that. Oh. First of all, when we do pano, we don't do pano on horizontal level. We do it on vertical level. We want to compress our image, and we want that part because we want to get most of our foreground. The pano will be like that, wide, and also for the foreground. So we go on that mode. You remember the L plate? Okay? So we need, what kind of equipment we need for the pano? The L plate, a ball head, a leveling base, and another thing is a rotating ball head. So when we do pano, we need to be very, we need to be straight the horizon. So I simply, what I do, why I need the leveling base, because sometimes I'm shooting in a place where my tripod is not straight. So I cannot level my tripod. The only way is I level only that part regarding my tripod if it's like that. So I can level like that. So this is the most important, leveling base. Then, yeah, we want to overlap our images. So we want to take multiple exposures from left to right. So this ball head, I can rotate only that part. So everything is steady. I can rotate only my head from top. So there are certain ball heads that will give you this option, which is they call it pano head. So, but all the time, I shoot at between 19 millimeter and 24 millimeter for pano. I don't do panorama with 14 millimeter, which is ultra wide, because it's really hard to control the distortion, especially if you're shooting a city. So I prefer that you go for 24, from 19 to 24 millimeter. So this is the trick about pano. But imagine, guys, sometimes we're doing long exposure pano and stacking focus at the same time. So that means I need to take one picture like that, focusing on the subject, then focusing there, those two exposures together. Then I go like that, and I take 1, 2, and I have to merge all together. So by practicing, you will learn this. It's not hard, but you need a certain equipment. Not too much, you know. Depend on the scene, depend on the lens. And I don't stitch my images in Photoshop because Photoshop is really hard. I stitch it in something called Autopano. It's very easy to stitch. Let me show you a picture that I was processing yesterday from Dubai. Please don't laugh about my desktop. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's me. Okay, I hope I can find this picture. Okay. Okay, maybe it's here. You know, I'm not organized at all. That's my problem in life. And my computer only, actually. I think this one pano. Not this one. Yeah, this one pano, but I'll show you another pano. Yeah. Yes, I did it before. I know, and so many photographers, they know what I'm talking about, especially we have one guy here, Anik there. Hi, Anik. He's also a roof topper. So I'm trying to start my image from the GLT because I want to frame from here till the end of the marine and the wheel here. If you shoot on 14, impossible. The 14 will get you like that. So my only way is to take 8 or, I don't know, 10 images. But also I have another problem. If I'm using a normal lens, I'm not going to get. So my best way is to shoot with tilt shift. Shift down, and get the entire scene. And I try to, in Photoshop, I failed. Thank God I have a friend, he's great in post-production. I can stitch all the images without any problem. So you see, this is the effect of pano on the corner. So this is when you printed 10 images. I don't know, the file is 2 GB file. I can print Raj on Sheikh Zayed. It's a huge. So if someone asks me, can we buy this image? Of course, thousands of dollars. This is where you start making money, when you have real quality to show for people, real estate, any kind of business. So let's not go out of the presentation now. Okay. Okay. Fun part. Yeah. Yeah, the focus. No, if I'm focusing and I get my focus correct, I simply get a scotch tape, make sure that the wind or even my hand by mistake will. No, you have to look, you have to put on autofocus. Yeah, we don't want to put autofocus. We are always on manual focus. Very easy. But you can use without it, depend. You know, this is what I do actually to get everything perfect. I'm a perfectionist in my images. I'm a friend of wind, birds. I'm just kidding. No, winds, I don't know, many things. But I'm, you know, like to be perfect. I don't want to give excuse to myself that I failed after I traveled lots of money to reach that place, and I want to go back with great images. So I'm very happy about those small details. Maybe for you or for someone else who won't make difference, that's me. That's what I do it. Yeah, if you want to go by my method, you can. You can be a great landscaper, even if you don't do all this. You know what I mean? I told you from the beginning, I know so many people in Dubai that are much, much better than me in photography level. Okay, but I think completely different than the others. Yes. Okay. Let me show you. Okay, you are on location. You are in a place where waves are hitting everywhere. You are in the middle of the ocean. There is storm and lightning in front of you. There is no place to put your equipment. You are carrying your backpack or your equipment. Okay, you have all these responsibilities. You have to put the filters. You have to calculate. You have to open your iPhone, and the battery is drained. You have to connect it with, you have so many things to think about. Sometimes you are in a situation, and you know what's funny? Sometimes I am in the middle of this problem with all the challenges, and my wife called me to ask me about food or something. I'm saying, can you leave me today because I'm shooting? So you don't want to get distracted, and you want to do it on a perfect way. Trust me, this is really small information, and I don't know, this is my way. But if you want to do it your way, it's up to you. There's nothing wrong or right in photography. It's your style. Okay, let's talk about art of composing. So, how many composition and how many landscape photography composition style we have? Okay, rule of third, strong story, adding to your elements. We're going to show images. Those images already implemented with the that I showed you with all the equipment and gear, and we will go by one. First, rule of third. Yep. Yeah, finish, guys. You done? Rule of third. What is rule of third? Why it's very common in the landscape photography world? Because we can get maximum from our composition. I like shooting rule of third by keeping always 20%, 30% from the sky, and 70 or 80% depend on the composition from the ground. Just live the moment with this image. Imagine that the same of the ground, which is here. If it's the same, it's going to be something wrong as a scale in the image. And I don't want anyone who looked at this image to be distracted by the sky. I want them to focus on that part. This is where the action, this is where I'm composing. This is where I decided to put my subject off center, implementing some one second exposure, I guess, 2 seconds, using some Grad filter, using some ND3 stop, using some polarizer, I guess, in this one because I had some reflection here, and got the composition. So this shot, it took me more than 1 day to be able to get it because the waves are coming and then going back. So when is the best time to get the shot? When the waves are coming? Of course not, when the waves are back. So if you stand in the water and this Arctic waves are very strong, I don't know, so many people that have been there, it's a very risky beach, actually, this beach in Iceland, because when the waves come, they bring so many icebergs. So you might be hit by something or injured. Even I lost my camera last year there. So I lost the camera and the lens in the water. So even for me, I failed on the safety level. So it's really hard to get the shot and to get the right exposure. So you have to wait where the water comes, you run, you put your camera, you compose very quick, you have the ND Grad, you have the Grad filter, and when the wave coming back to the ocean, you take the shot. And then you run back because another wave are coming. It's very challenging. You need certain equipment, and you need to start thinking like that. And we decided to add the rule of third here, actually, to give it more depth and focusing on the foreground. 2 seconds, f16, ISO 100. Also, it's good to add foreground to our image. Always, I see so many young photographers, which is I don't blame, start, or Instagrammers, they only photograph the sky. Man, you cannot only photograph the sky. You have to include part of the composition, the ground. You need to start thinking completely different. Imagine this picture without this one. It's very empty, no depth. By adding this one, I'm creating a scale to the image. I've been shooting at 1424, 3 stop, not for the long exposure, because I wanted to little bit to go below my 3 seconds, 4 seconds to get this beautiful wave. So it's not too much long exposure, it's little. And I was shooting during sunrise. Another pictures, I'm showing lots from Iceland because trust me guys, Iceland, this is where you find all the contents that you want. Black sand, white icebergs, mountains, light, aurora. It's really fascinating landscape there. So if you really want to learn landscape photography or you want to gain an experience from landscape, go to Iceland. You will never regret. It's not even expensive these days because 3 million tourists worldwide, they want to go to Iceland, so many offers. And if anyone need help or advice, let me know, I can share it with you. So let's talk about strong subject. This is a subject. Why? We have waterfall going like that, which is the curve going to the ocean. I have the mountain on the left, and I have beautiful clouds in the sky. The colors are matching, which is warm, which is my style during golden hour. And I think it's good as someone who want to print it for, I don't know, for fine art. But it's a very commercial picture. So many people, they see, oh, this is nice. But everyone can get this in Iceland because the weather is nice. But you need to know how to compose and when to go there. Everything is single shot. I'll show you if anything I'm blending, I'll tell you. Okay, leading line, very simple shot. I went to Oman. This is Jabal Shamsia. And I went there, the weather was horrible actually. And I went in the summer. And I was just driving, I don't know, 4 hours to reach that mountain. I said, you know, I'm gonna take my shot and I go down. And I was scouting, I don't know the location, the first time I'd be there. So I reached that place and I decided to go by handheld, as I explained before, and try to point down. And I saw this beautiful lines, and with the sun, sunset is from between the mountains. So this is where you can, when you look to this image, the lines are leading your view. It's not that wow image, but this is an example actually. Simple and clean. I like to keep my images very simple and clean. And clean colors. You see different mode, different timing, vertical mode, technique. I'm using with 6-stop, Grad filter 9 for this golden hour, blue hour. So let me stop here. Forget the story about clean and simple. Let me talk about how many images I'm expecting when I travel. I do some calculation on paper. Okay, I'm going to tomorrow to HIPA. What I'm expecting images there. I do very simple calculation. 1 during golden hour, 1 during blue hour, 1 at night, and another 1 during golden hour in the morning, because I don't like the blue hour in the morning. So 4 images from the location, but I can multiply those 4 images by another 4 if I start thinking to converting from vertical to horizontal and to shoot in different technique. So it's a creative way. So this is the good thing. So I'm not that kind of person like before. I used to get thousands of images on memory card. No, I'm just traveling right now. I know myself, I need 10 to 15 images, and that's it. I'm very satisfied. Sometimes I travel to a location, I spend there 7 days. The first 3 days, it's only for scouting. I have to live the place. I have to understand. I have to see the challenging. Then I start thinking after that. So this is the way photographers, pro landscapers, they think, unless if you know the location in advance. Look for patterns, lovely patterns with contrast on the foreground. This one shot in Egypt, D800, 1424. Imagine I have very boring sky. Even the composition is very bad here. But because I'm going down, I'm getting more foreground, you see more depth in the composition. Break the rules. I always show this image during my presentations. What is breaking the rules? How we can break the rules in photography. This is Hatta Lake in Dubai, Oman. Who owns Hatta? Dubai or Oman? Dubai? And the lake is in Dubai? Okay, this is in Dubai. Okay, I went there and I didn't find anything interesting in the composition. You know, it's a tree in the water. Create a drama. I need to create something. Okay, I have this years of experience of doing long exposure and technical part. I said, let me pre-visual this. And I started to think, okay, if I have the tree like that, what will be the good thing? Is to have clouds behind the tree and doing long exposure to create something like identical to match the tree, which is the clouds. And I'm going for longer exposure here. And I start to pre-visual this. And now I went for long exposure. And I decided to break the rule in the composition for one thing. When you have an element, a tree or something, and you're composing, and you're putting this in the middle of your composition, sometimes is distracting. But if you move it left or right, you can you can within the off-center, actually we call it, which is much better. But I decided to keep it in the middle. But I compensated by having the clouds and the long exposure. So this is where you start thinking how we can make the tool in photography. And D13 stop 120 seconds. Imagine 120 seconds to get the clouds like that, because the wind, it wasn't that fast. The clouds are a little bit slow. Okay, breaking the rules. I can keep this in the middle. Okay, imagine this picture. Let's remove the clouds. Imagine this image without clouds. It will be very ugly. But imagine this image without the clouds, but the boat is more on the right of center. Yeah, that is a scale. But how can I keep the boat in the middle and without getting this distracting? So it's simple. If you have really nice clouds and if you can observe what you're shooting, you have to keep looking to things, keep looking to composition, foreground. Live the moment. You have to start thinking and pre-visual things. This is what we do in landscape. So this is where I like reflection. I adore reflection in life. Anything reflected is, for me, it's something really cool. So it's part of my signature. This is in Bali. I'm shooting at 10 seconds, f11, ISO 100. Off center, yes, move your subject to the right or to the left. But here I'm to the right. I was planning to get the sun behind the mountain during sunset and to get this f16, because we get this effect at f16. I'm using here only polarizer. I love shooting against the sun. I'm a guy that, if you notice my images, always against the sun, because I love those shadows coming, especially from nature. So I really suggest that you start learning how you shoot against the sun at f16, and this is where you need a good camera. You need a dynamic range. So when you open your shadows in post-production, you can retrieve all the information from your camera. If you see this raw file, it's completely dark. But when I open my shadow, the details. So that's the good about high dynamic range. But do we need high dynamic range all the time? I don't think so. I love low-key light. I love drama. I'm a dramatic person. I'm extremely dramatic in everything. I love darkness. I wear black. I hate day. I sleep day. I'm a night guy. So I prefer always, low-key light, darkness, like something like that. So this is in Bali. I decided to dark my... Yes. I'm a drama queen. Yes. Even my wife complained. Yeah. So I like to use some... I decided to use here during sunrise here. I decided to go for ND and to darken my shot to the maximum to be able to get some nice shadows as a backlit from the other side. ND 6 stop, rule of third, less sky, Grad filter hard edge for the sky, and f16 because I want dark and I want a little bit of star in the sky, but it's not too much. Shoot against the sun, we go back to shoot against the sun, one single exposure. My composition, I know if I have flowers and the sun coming from the other side, it will blow the flowers and we have beautiful contrast. And I'm shooting f16 also to get the sun like that. Imagine this picture without the sun, it's very boring. So this is in my country, Lebanon. A few images that I've shot in my country, I don't know why. I'm shooting 1424, no need for ND filter here. I only need polarizer to darken the sky and to give the blue more life. In your composition, go very low. Sometimes we don't need a tripod. Sometimes, I don't know if I have images, I'll show you. I simply go my handheld and I go very low unless I'm doing long exposure. And I simply get the picture handheld like that while I'm standing, I'm just flat soul. So always it's good to go low and to compose correct. This one is not with Nikon, I'm sorry, this is Zeiss manual focus, autos. I'm sorry, Nikon, give me. Okay, framing, when you compose, try to frame more. This is a very boring picture. There's no clouds, there is nothing. But if you're shooting this at wide angle, you see the dunes are very small. The good thing is to frame, to use some telephoto lens. If you go to 70 to 100, you can compress your image, and anything small in your composition will be big. So this is when we start using telephoto lenses with landscape. So try to think also about framing. I'm using only polarizer but because there is nothing here and the sky. This is in Liwa. Another framing, this is in Namibia. It's beautiful with the trees. You see the composition. I don't need the entire composition. I need that part only, framing on the trees, part of the sky. We have so many layers. This is what I care about. I suggest that you go to a place like Namibia, guys, and this is where you enhance your composition, because all those trees are located in a different way. So it's good to exercise in a place like that. It's a beautiful place, Namibia, and one of my favorites. I like to add the human in composition. Why not adding a human, even in landscape? It's Instagram pictures. Everyone wants to include himself in the picture these days. Not selfie like that, but back with Mavic, with, I don't know, normal picture. So it's very famous now. I decided to shoot that guy. He's going to he's a fisherman, going to his work on the morning, and there is storm coming. You see, I decided to go very low to get the entire boat, to get more depth from here, and I'm using certain technique here by 6-stop and hard edge for the sky because I want the sky to be very dark. So it's like really artistic in terms of landscape. Adding a human, also it's good to add a human. This is in Jordan, one of the most famous arch at Wadi Ram in the desert. If you go to Jordan, you will find many arches, natural bridges and arches. It's good also to add some human. The guy, he suffered, he stayed there on top of this all night, and all the people during the workshop were shooting, and he was crying, I want to shoot. Then we got this picture using a headlamp. It's a normal picture, you know, but at least I'm showing you that you can add a human to your composition. Imagine this composition without it, it's empty a little bit. So we decided to add some car here, some 4-wheel drive, and to get some natural light on the... Excuse me? No, pick one picture. Yeah. Yeah. The normal light of the car, yeah, but not too much affecting the rock. You know, we just like putting the light of the car on very far, but at night, you know, it will absorb all the light. Yes. Yeah, it's if you zoom in, it's not sharp 100%. Yeah. No, the good thing to have to composite this. You have to take picture from him and another picture. But sometimes, no, you can't, because he was standing there and it's like wind and he was tired. So even if you zoom in on that picture, you see that he's like faded. But I tried by trying to masking a little bit and trying to clean it to make it more sharp at the edge. But you will not notice here. Okay, that's me. I like to add myself, okay? Don't do that, but I'm safe actually. This is shot with D810. I'm sorry, Zeiss Melvis 21mm, and some of my friends, he took the shot. I like to add animals to my composition. Yeah, it's landscape, but you can do also wildlife. Combine this. You don't need to focus only on the animal, but you can include the animal in your composition. But if you're adding animal to your composition, think as a landscape photographer. So I don't want this one to be my hero, but I want the entire composition, the way we compose the dune and people on top, and he's off center, the right in the shadows. So this is where you start thinking. It took a lot of patience, this picture. I was standing there waiting for the oryx for more than 2 hours. And honestly speaking, I hate wildlife photography. I'm not a wildlife photographer because I'm not that patient. It's me, it's too much, you know. I'm not that kind that can sit with telephoto lens. No, I like to move, go to the mountain, stuff like that. Include architectural in your composition. This is also fog shot. I consider fog landscape. It's not only cityscape here. Try to shoot long exposure. This is 45 seconds. I can have this beautiful fluffy clouds, which is the fog surrounding Burj Khalifa, especially with a lot of adjustment on this picture in post-production. Water movement, also for landscape, you have to know what is your shutter speed for the water, how you can compose as well. So we're shooting at 1424, 6-stop, Grad, edge for the sky, 10 seconds, f8, ISO 64. Another picture from Sri Lanka. I'm using 2470 here. Zooming on the subject. I want to compress my view because there is nothing to add in this image. The image was very boring unless we have the water, but I converted it into black and white. So I have the contrast between the water and the black surface. I'm shooting in 20 seconds, f8, 64. I'm using polarizer to remove some reflection from the rock. You need to create depth in your composition. So I was in one of those ugly ice caves. Okay, I'm going to tell you why it's ugly. Because you see in those images of Iceland, beautiful ice caves. Okay, but in fact, when you go, the ice caves are changing every day. They are melting. So once you took picture for a nice ice cave, you will not find it maybe the second season. And when you go to the cave, you are surrounded with 100 tourists with a small room. And all of them using flash in the ice cave. And you are doing long exposure. So it was really hard to compose unless you go to Iceland and you got a special access alone in one of those ice caves. But the problem is a very small ice cave. I'm talking about between, I don't know, maybe that distance. It was very small. To be able to create depth, what I need to do, if I shoot on high, it's going to be like very ugly picture. There's nothing to add. So I decided to go very, very, very low and put my camera a little bit up because I want to get all the entire scene above me. So this is where I'm using wide angle. And I don't know who's that guy in the composition. Maybe Daniel? I don't know. He was standing there. Shooting with 1424, 2 seconds, 5.6, ISO 400, one single exposure. And I did lots of dodge and burning here because it was overexposed. Because it's really hard to shoot in a cave because water are dropping and melting on you, and they don't give you time unless you live in Iceland and you are famous there. Of course, night art. You saw this picture before in one of those images of Iceland. The same day, if you come back at night, you get your composition. So it's always to stay in the same and try to get different composition, different look, vertical, horizontal, night, golden, blue hour. So this is the easy part. Okay, one of the images that I really like, this is when we add also human to our story. This is one of the images that I love from all my collection. If you tell me choose one image, I'll tell you this one. Not because of the technical, even technically not that good, because I'm not doing the right shutter, not sports photographer, I failed here, but the story. Remember when I told you have to travel and to understand where you're going as a country, as a culture, you need to study the location, etc. I planned my trip to Socotra Island, Yemen, 3 years ago, and I always tell the story during the workshop. I don't know, so many people, they heard it before. I did some study and research. How can I shoot those people? I know that are very conservative. Kids, they don't see lots of tourists there because it's not a tourist place. Tourists are going on a yearly basis, do many things. And kids, they don't love chocolate. They don't love gifts. They only like pens to draw. So I decided to bring me a big bag of pens, and I took it with me to the island. And I spent one day trying to make good relation between me and the kids and to be able to get the shot that I want. So it's all about, interacting, understanding the culture, and respecting others. But this is mainly not a landscape, but at least I'm shooting landscape on those white dunes. They have 200 kilometers of white dunes like that. So if you had a chance in your life, try to fly to Socotra Island in Yemen. It's a beautiful place. But go to Yemen first. Okay. I think we're close, yeah. Let me check. Okay, another pano. This is a pano in Namibia. I'm shooting 135. I did 3 images here, and I'm shooting vertical mode. I like to use telephoto lenses. Amazing telephoto when you compress the image. This one in Berlin, in Germany. I'm using 70-200 here, 3-stop and polarizer. I'm shooting during sunrise. You see the golden hour, and we shoot against the sun, or you keep the sun within the frame. You get this beautiful light. So you have to start thinking about light in general. Okay, another telephoto, also in Iceland. You simply, again, there's nothing to add in this one, so I decided to just crop my shot to frame at 200 millimeter focal length and get this beautiful light here during the sunset. F8, ISO 64, and there's no need for long exposure. questions? Okay. You know, this presentation is really hard to explain to people because when we do workshops, we show people this presentation and then exercise one by one on location. So when we do it as we call it inspirational session, it's really hard to implement it because you will forget most of the questions. And I keep getting requests from people asking me, can we have this PowerPoint? I'm sorry, I cannot provide this PowerPoint, but I can provide you with any question you want. You didn't. Okay. Long exp. Long exp. Yeah. And all the applications that do calculation for the exposure, they are the same actually. Yeah. But you need to start working on aperture priority. You meter your shot, then you decided which aperture you want, like f8, f11, and then decided to go for 10 stop, 3, 6, depend on the exposure time and how winds are fast, or you need to exercise. Okay.
When you're using the ND filter and Grad and polarizer, any specific arrangement as a layers, which one in the front and which one in the back?
No. I start by ND. You know, so many people, they think that they are covering each other. It's not correct.
I know, but
yeah.
Any different effect if you are putting one before the other?
No, no, no. I start doing one by one. First, I put my polarizer to make sure I'm removing the reflection. Then I go by the Grad to make sure the Grad is fitting the horizon.
Yes.
Then I go by the ND, then I shoot.
Okay.
Yeah. All the presentation you've been asking questions, and now no one wants to ask.
My question regarding the focus stuck.
Yes.
Okay. How يعني when you take focus stacking, okay?
بالعربي. Go ahead.
لا, it's okay.
Okay.
And there is a water moving in the scene, okay? How you be sure the water movement is the same, it match in the different shoot?
Do you mean if I'm doing multiple shots or one single exposure?
Multi, yeah. Focus stacking.
Yeah, because you have to be very fast and you have to shoot at the same sequences and settings every time.
Very fast because it's moving. Water is moving. Waterfall, for example.
If I'm shooting waterfall and doing stacking, waterfall, it's really hard to stitch this.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, but I'm not doing waterfall stacking. I'm doing actually the ground stacking, then the waterfall, another picture alone on long exposure.
Okay.
So the water are moving. I don't need to show focus on the water. Okay. My focus will be on the foreground and on the infinity. If there is mountains, but sky and water, there's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Loopy, I can go home.
Hello, Dany. Hello?
I can't hear.
Can we get the same effect instead of using expensive filters by bracketing, like exposure compensation?
Yeah, you can do long exposure, but you need to do maybe, I don't know, 200 shots to get 200. This. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I don't do that because I'm a photographer. I'm not a graphic designer.
No, not by graphic. It's the same camera that has
the bracketing
feature.
But why you need to bracket the long exposure? It's waste of time. Just get the filter and do it in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's very simple. Photography is very simple. If you make it complicated,
لا يعني it's for to save 2,000 dirham.
I'll get a discount. Let me know. You don't need. You know, I'm sorry, guys. You have to invest somehow. There is no choice. Okay. At least, you know, instead of you with your friend and having dinner and lunch and partying, just save some money for photography. You're not thinking in the future to make money out of photography.
We're not making money.
You can make money of photography. When I started, I was zero reputation in the market 4 years ago. And no one even know who I am 4 years ago. My investment wasn't investing in equipment because I got all the equipment from the brand that I represent. My investment is timing because I was away from my family. I was traveling all the time. I was shooting sunset, sunrise every day. I was spending my time on rooftops in Dubai. I had many horrible time in my life, actually, and I still till now, and trust me, it comes to priority in life, which is my family, wife, and my personal health life. I was 86 kilo when I came to Dubai. Now I'm 104. Yeah, because I spent my time in airports. I'm eating junk. I'm not sleeping well. Sometimes I eat at afternoon. Sometimes I have lunch at night. I work in the corporate business, so it's really hard for me as a person. You know, I can do this after 10 years at 50 or 55. Trust me, I will not do that because even now, at my age, I'm tired. You know, so you have time now to at least work on yourself and develop your skills. But you know, this is something that maybe this is me. You know, I'm devoted for something. I'll give you an example. Now I'm going next week to Lebanon. I'm going for 1 week to Lebanon. Then I'll go back to Dubai for 1 day, going to Yemen for 2 weeks, then going back to Dubai 1 day, going to Amsterdam workshop for 6 days, then going to Iceland for 1 month. I have 2 workshops. I sleep on a daily basis 2 hours. I drive every day 200 kilometers, and I have people, my responsibility to teach and take care of the logistics because I do everything. Then I go back to Dubai on the 31st of October. On the 2nd of November, I have a workshop, 7 days camping and climbing in Jordan. This is my life. This is beside the corporate job that I do. You know, it's really hard sometimes when you think about it, that as a photographer, you know, how can you manage all this between your hobby and all your social media? I reply back to every single person on social media. If anyone here contact me, tell me that I emailed you, you didn't get back to me. Are you? Did I get back to you? Yes. I reply back to everyone. I have meetings with clients on a daily basis. I deal with all my brands, and I present my brands on a professional level. If they ask me that I need to do a session at HIPA, I have to commit on time, and I have to be very professional with relation to show on time, to show that I'm serious. So photography, it's all about business. It's not only the artistic. You can be a good artist, but you can fail to achieve or to show your art to the world.
Would you care for an assistant? Would you care for an assistant?
No, only when I go for a real huge project, I have equipment like lighting, soft boxes to install. Of course, I need assistant. I cannot. But imagine going to landscape and have someone to carry my backpack. Oh, come on. I enjoy this. I enjoy carrying my backpack. I enjoy, you know, sleeping at the airports because I know I will be compensated later by good images. So this is what I do. I do it from the heart. I'm just like doing to make money. No, because I love what I'm doing. And I love landscape in general. So that I told you, if you don't like landscape, just go for studio. Don't do it. If you cannot handle cold, walk, camping, lack of sleeping, you're not eating well, I don't know, sleeping in the desert 3-4 days.
Well, I mean, someone has to be with you for safety matters. You said.
No, during the workshops, I'm fine. I have my team.
Not
of course.
like being out in the outdoor.
Yeah.
Haven't you like people? Did you even get attacked by people who wanted to camera your gear? To steal your stuff?
No, because I know where I'm going. I do study and research before. I will not go, to Afghanistan, to the mountains, to spend a long time there to get the shot. There is,
so
logic.
You've never encountered any
No.
problems from people wanted to grab your gear or?
No, never.
Just
never.
No. During the night or?
No. They're afraid.
No.
I don't look like a nice guy. I'm a little bit tough. So yeah.
Good.
So but and you have to go through all this. Any questions? Microphone.
How is it that how can beginner photographers step into the corporate world and make a mark into how can they show that they have something new and they want to make business? How can we show ourselves in the corporate world?
Do you mean working with the brands?
Yeah, how do we get ourselves known to the brands?
Well, as a photographer, first of all, you need to work on yourself. You need to build a name. And once any company, they will contact you. I've been contacted by companies. I didn't even approach any company. They contact me and they told me, okay, we like your work. First of all, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you are selling yourself as a photographer. It's not good for your image. Let people run after you on a business level. I'm sorry. Then, if they saw that you are a committed person and you are professional, other companies they will see that, no, you are serious, and they will contact you. But this is something that you need luck on speaking, because now everyone wants to be a photographer. I received today I received a message on Instagram, someone tell me, how can I work with brands like Nikon and make money? Oh my God. Oh my God, if you start thinking as a photographer that I want to make money from the brands, trust me, don't do it. Because the brands, they will not give you money cash. Don't think that we have salaries. We get compensated by workshops, we get free equipment, support on social media. They help us to grow our business, our portfolio. And this entire concept, agencies, they can see in the region and they can hire you. Now I have a huge project, I've been contacted days ago, huge project of 3 months of shooting, 1,500 images for a huge country in the Middle East, okay, as a main campaign for tourism. I'm talking about landscape pure. So you will start making your name, but you have to be very patient. Don't run it, I want to make money now. Just focus on your art, on yourself, and then things will come slowly.
What ratio do you usually prefer, like 3:2? What ratio do you prefer?
Excuse me?
What ratio, the ratio of the image?
What, I can't hear.
Ratio.
16 by 9, yes.
That's the best?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you're asking for Instagram, 1.1. Yeah, you know, but the good thing, I was checking this new Nikon D850. I was checking the Nikon D850, and you have this option that when you look to the viewfinder, you have all this ratio actually, which is 1.1, 16.9 on the viewfinder. So you can compose and get your raw file 1.1 square as a medium format or something. Yes, don't start. Okay. Okay, what else? Yes.
Do you prefer using auto white balance or do you use gray cards?
No need for gray cards. If you're doing studio photography, lifestyle, yes, you need a gray, but for landscape, auto white balance. But what I do sometimes, I shoot to location, and I shoot with several different type of white balance. And I start looking to the image and I see, this magenta color is really cool. So what I do, I keep shooting on that level, and I know in advance that this is the look in post. So I can compose the way I want. You know, it's a state of mind. You have to live inside yourself. Yeah. Anyone? Question? Question?
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for coming. And thank you, Dany, for your great presentation. Thank you. We would like to give you thank you certificates and take a group photo with everybody.
Wow.
Yeah? Cool.
No money?
No money.
Not from me.
I'm a businessman.
You are not working for money, yeah?
No.
Okay.
You know, as a photographer, sorry, you start doing the photography because you love it, not only for money. Trust me, you know, like self-satisfaction. Okay.
Okay. We need to remove this. Yeah, we can stand up if you wish. Yeah? Cool.
On?
I think you have to stand.
بوقف وين وراي؟
That's all right.
عادي؟ Wait, my hair look okay?
Okay, come.
Yes, of course. حبيبي.
You can stand. Yeah, I told you. Okay, everyone, don't forget, please, to take your certificate from the reception. Thank you very much and good night.
اه
أنا بفحص اليوتيوب.
قطع كلمات في ثانك يو حبيبي. لا بس عامل لي على الانستغرام دغري. انا انستغرام تبعي هو البزنس كارد. بس بعت لي رساله. سهلا فيك. سهلا اكيد. Yes, of course. You want to have a picture with me? Oh my God. I'm not a celebrity, man. I'm just. Okay. We'll talk later.